Hey Sentinels, thank you so much for joining our press conference today. As you guys already know probably, the process of the press conference, we first start with some pre-submitted questions and then move on to the open sessions where journalists will be asking live questions. The first question is from Pedro Romero Gamezo. And yeah, throughout Masters 2, Bind has been permabanned by Sentinels, but against NUTURN, it was left free for the first time. What was the basis for that decision?
So we kind of knew that Bind they were pretty much undefeated on back home, and so they weren't going to switch up much of what they do. They were kind of running like the older meta comps, no Astra, no Viper. So we figured that if we let Bind through, it's still a good map for us. It's been going well in practice, that we can prep for them and they're not going to change a whole lot, and we have the advantage of using agents that we feel like are stronger on the map.
Okay, next question is also from Pedro Romero Gamezo. How did the team neutralize NUTURN's composition on Bind, which had solo on Breach, the same agent who helped beat Sharks in the upper bracket quarterfinals?
Yeah, honestly, the thing about Breach is some of his abilities are kind of predictable, so you can kind of like pre-plan for what he's gonna throw at you. So like before the game, like when we were talking about the veto, we kind of wanted to leave Bind open just because we felt that the comp that they were running wasn't exactly like in the meta. So even though like it was like a tough decision to leave Bind open, we thought that even though they were undefeated, like we thought we had the better Bind, and obviously we did.
Okay, that's it for all the pre-submitted questions. We will now move on to the open session. Please use your raise your hand function. Shay Robson, you can go first.
This question for Shazam. Earlier this week, I had a chat with Tens, and he said a big part of competitive play is losing because you're able to figure out your flaws and what you need to work on. Now, considering Sentinels hasn't lost a game yet, do you think there's any flaws that the team needs to work on heading into the grand finals?
I think right now we're playing really well. Obviously, our communication is really good, our game plans are good, but we could definitely be a bit more disciplined on some rounds. We don't have to like force the issue if we get like delayed on hitting a site, and maybe just reset and play the round out instead of like trying to force into the site. Outside of that, yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, losing, you learn a lot. Some of the big losses that we've had throughout the year, like we probably learned the most from, and that's kind of like what brought us here. But I think now that we're in the tournament, we're just focusing on the things that we have and the things that we're doing right, and then afterwards, if anything goes wrong, we can like reevaluate it. But so far, so good.
Next to go is Yinsu Collins.
Hi, Yingsu here from Upcomer. My question is to Zoms. Now, we are in this Viper and Astra meta, and everyone has been kind of weighing in on what they think of this. You've been on Viper and Astra duty for Sentinels, so I wanted to get your opinion on what you think of the meta, and are these two agents fun for you to play? Is this your preference? So if you had any other way, would you rather not see this meta being the most prominent one?
No, I definitely prefer this meta right now, but it's probably because the other teams just aren't as good as us at it. And I think like me and Dapper both enjoy playing Viper, and I think I'm probably the best Astra in the game, so it works out.
Next is Niall_esports.
Yeah, so my question's actually for Dapper specifically. I spoke to you earlier just before you left for Iceland, and you told me that you were gonna continue your kind of BM play style against some of your opponents. And now that you've played on LAN, I just have to ask, how does it feel teabagging on LAN? What's the hit reg like on some of those teabags?
Yeah, so the teabag, it's more fluid. You just feel like you're kind of immersed when you do it, so it just makes it feel 10 times better when you finally do it.
Thank you.
Next is Mitch Reams, Nerd Street Gamers.
Sorry, guys, I'm still laughing. My question is for Shazam. In NUTURN's press conference, they said that they expected the Jet and Breach comp to work because you guys depend more on personal mechanics as opposed to teamwork. So my question is, do you think your guys' teamwork is being underestimated by other teams?
Yeah, definitely. We knew that their bind revolved around like Breach flashing for Jet to peak or Race to peak, and that was kind of the game plan. Was like, we're gonna let the Sylvia utility lead and bait it out. We're not gonna get caught out by this Breach utility. We're not gonna get caught out in showers. We're gonna give it up. We're not gonna let them play their game. Like, we're aware of their plays, and so we kind of just worked around it. And like, I mean, that's teamwork itself. So, I mean, if people need to start like recognizing the things that we're doing if it doesn't necessarily look as cool as the things that other teams do.
The next to go is Emery, VLRGG.
Hey, my question's for Sick. So every match this week, you've looked at least a little better than you did the match before. Has this been a matter of getting comfortable or anything like that for you?
I mean, obviously, like I even told like my stream before going to LAN, you're always going to be less comfortable in a LAN setup, no matter how experienced you are. So even though like I have a decent amount of LAN experience, I think the first match especially was hard for me to get into because we didn't have that much time to prepare on the stage, like because the matches were running late and we got rushed into the match. So I think it just took like some confidence building across the matches that maybe we felt a bit more confident against like the Vikings one, where I could just get into my form.
Do we have any more questions for Sentinels? Shay Robson, GameZone.
Hi, another question for Shazam again. Earlier this week in the scrum, you said that EU needs to be respected as a region. Now that you're through to the grand finals, do you think NA needs to be respected as a region? Sorry. Now that you're through to the finals, do you think NA has earned that respect?
I think definitely. I think you know, we've beaten one of the best EU teams, one of the best Brazilian teams, and one of the best Korean teams to get here. So I feel like people would be crazy not to respect us as a region now. But it's like, you know, you can't definitively say like one region is better than other just yet because we're just like one team representing the region. And like you never know if like the best EU teams right now are here. The game's constantly evolving. So I think we'll know more and more over time how like the regions really pan out.
Next to go is Yinsu Collins.
My question is for Dapper. I saw you on Twitter earlier today respond to a comment regarding NA having the better region because all of the best CS players moved over, whereas in Europe they stayed in Counter-Strike. I wanted to know if you would be able to elaborate a bit more on your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like someone I probably shouldn't have responded in the first place, but just my whole like the whole reason I responded, why I kind of like made me mad, was because it was kind of like it was like moving goalpost in my eyes, where it's like everybody would hype up EU, you know, going into the event, just in general, like EU from their CS history would just gonna be looked as the better region. And then when NA started perform, it was like, oh yeah, it was obvious NA was gonna perform. Like, look at who moved over compared to EU, and I'm just like, well, you can't have it both ways. So that's kind of how I viewed it.
The next is Niall, Discord Esports.
Yeah, so this question is for Shazam. Now, you and Sick in particular, you have more LAN experience than some of these teams, maybe even combined. So I just wanted to know if, like, how much do you think that experience has helped you guys progress so far at the event? Like, how much of an advantage do you think that it's given you over some of these opponents?
I think it's definitely a pretty big advantage. You know, some of these guys are really new to LAN environments. You know, Valorant's like their first big tournament or big esport. But like, you know, we've been through a lot of like big tournaments in CS, and so it's like a pretty easy adjustment. Even if like things don't feel perfectly like they're at home, we're like pretty used to, you know, just getting used to a new setup. Outside of that, I think it's like a mental thing too. Is like we just know the game feels way better on LAN. Like we're comfortable with it, and it helps.
Mitch Reams, Nerd Street Gamers, you have a question?
Yes. My question is for Tens. You guys are on a bit of a world tour now after beating a team from EU, a team from Brazil, and a team from Korea. None gave you too much trouble, but could you tell the comps were each pretty different depending on the region you were playing?
Obviously, each region has their own play style, but I think because we're so good at adapting that we were able to adjust and play kind of against that style's weakness.
Emery, VLRTG.
So I've already asked this question of Sick and Tens earlier this week, so this is for the other three, and this kind of bounces off Niall's question a moment ago. But, you know, how does Valorant on the LAN client feel compared to the game regularly for you all?
Yeah. It feels so much better. We've had the luxury of like being in a pretty central location to play online. Like our ping from Texas is pretty good, but obviously like opping on LAN feels phenomenal. Like I feel like I can actually hold an angle and like I'm not gonna get wide swung by Vandal. So I definitely prefer playing on LAN way more. Also in the practice rooms, if we played online, we could just feel like the difference, like 60, 70 ping, and how even in like a deathmatch, it felt pretty difficult to get the kills that I would normally get compared to like a LAN. So I'll definitely always prefer LAN play. The game just feels more natural.
Next to go is Pedro Romero, Gamezo.
Yes, this question goes for Zoms. Although you've been successful with Valorant as a member of Sentinels, compared to your career before touching the game, you haven't tasted the same amount of achievements, be it team or individual-wise. How does it feel to be on the precipice of capturing another title in Valorant?
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Sure. Although you've been successful with Valorant as a member of Sentinels, you haven't achieved the same amount of success in other titles that you've played before touching the game. How does it feel to be on the precipice of capturing another title in Valorant?
Well, firstly, I disagree with that because I was on a top 3 team in Apex throughout my entire time playing, but it feels good to win with this team, and we're going to keep winning.
Okay, next to go is Yinsu Collins.
My question is for Shazam. Looking at the lower bracket, who do you think is going to make it out to face you guys, and who would you rather play against?
I think all the teams remaining are really strong. Liquid and Fnatic seem to be getting the groove from like their earlier games now and in their form. Personally, I'd prefer to play Liquid because we've already taken out Fnatic, so I just want to take out the other EU team, and we'll better fashion in the grand finals. So yeah.
Next is Emery, VLRGG.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand, but actually I'll just ask that same question I just did to Dapper because I saw you picking up your mic a moment ago. So feel free.
Yeah, it was the LAN one, right? Just confirming.
Yes, the LAN one.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna agree with Chaz. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody that plays the game professionally and be like, yeah, LAN feels worse, other than just like them just being uncomfortable when they first start. But yeah, for like Sentinel playstyle in general, like Killjoy, Cypher, Sage, and just being like way more passive, it just rewards you being patient and disciplined because there's no like Ferrari peaks that will catch you off guard. And even if you have like a better position, the odds of you getting that kill is way higher than online. So it makes me, just feel more confident holding angles. So yeah, feels great.
Next to go is Yinsu Collins.
This question is for Tens. We saw you take a break from competitive competition earlier in your Valorant career, but now you're back competing and you are here seeing a lot of success at LAN. I wanted to know how much fun you're having, and how different this is to something like content creation.
When I originally took the step down to content creation, I kind of realized it from watching the matches that I still wanted to compete. And obviously this team, when I filled in for them, they were already winning stuff. So it was kind of a no-brainer when Chaz asked me on Twitter DMs to come play for an event. And then I guess it's turning into a long-term thing. And this is the most fun I've ever had with the team.
Are there any more questions for Sentinels? All right, I think that concludes the press conference for today. Thank you, Sentinels, so much for joining our press conference.